Well, hey everyone, it's Rob Borrego and Stan Wisseman back here again for another episode of Reimagining Cyber Extra. And it seems to be quite a hit. So guess what? We're going to keep this thing going, right? So let's talk this week about kind of what's recently been happening, some of the different topics. You know, you and I have had these cyber conversations, of course. We always do that all the time. And now we're bringing it forward in these extra episodes. So what do you want to talk about first?
Well, let's talk about some of the nation state attacks that are out there that we've seen some press on. One of the ones that caught my eye was the Secret Service came out and said that there are hackers from China that were linked to stealing around $20 million of U.S. COVID relief benefits, including Small Business Administration loans and unemployment insurance funds from over a dozen states. And so that was the first attribution to a foreign state-sponsored cyber criminal group. And this particular attribution went back to Qingdao-based hacking group known as APT41.
Yeah, so I saw that too. And I think what's interesting also on top of that is the aspect of timing, right? So this comes out and then you hear DHS talking about, hey, you know, we need to be paying much more attention to these nation state sponsored types of events and incidents occurring. They've been going on for quite some time. Critical infrastructure is part of it. Here's the example that just came out with Secret Service saying, hey, we look at about close to $20 million of COVID relief fund states being impacted. But it's also like, you know, the realization that, yeah, it's literally, as they call it, a keystroke away from a major type of incident occurring. And all these different type of critical infrastructure examples, I think, are starting to really open up the eye. What we saw last year, we talked about it in the past, Colonial Pipeline. What we're seeing, you know, takes us into almost like, you know, recently with Microsoft just talking about the additional kind of pledge on their end to help fortify some of the security capabilities for Ukraine as they continue to, you know, try to kind of steer Russia from a cyber perspective away from them and some of these specific, you know, incidents occurring there.
Well, Microsoft has been helping Ukraine quite a bit. And, you know, they actually, again, that was another news item that caught my eye was the fact that the Digital Threat Analysis Center at Microsoft warned that Russia is intensifying their pressure, not only on Ukraine, but also sources of political and supply that countries like the United States that are going to be helping Ukraine out. Mm-hmm. And they attributed attacks in October, the ransomware attacks that hit Polish transportation and logistic organizations to the Russian military. And so this winter, we could see, again, we mentioned in the last extra issue that it looked like perhaps the Russian and Ukrainian bad actors were a little bit busy because of the war and fighting each other, but maybe they're going to be dedicating more time going after those that are supplying aid to Ukraine.
Yeah, that's something as well, right? So I think, you know, that Prestige ransomware you're talking about in October that you saw come out, and then some of the elements also that Microsoft had in their report around, you know, it's interesting. They actually kind of timeline some of the physical and then the cyber specific types of incidents, and the you know, the cyber aspect of it continuously. Yeah, it's more of what we're seeing around kind of energy, right? The critical infrastructure, water supplies. I mean, they're coming at it from all different perspectives.
Well, they're doing kinetic, obviously, against the energy infrastructure of Ukraine. And, you know, why not also combine that with cyber and make it that much more difficult for everybody? Yeah. You know, I think going back to the incident with the SBA and attacks there, I have a friend who actually works as a lawyer in the fraud department at SBA. Okay. And he has told me for quite some time of just how bad the fraud is. And I think, you know, this is just the tip of the iceberg as far as foreign entities that have leveraged the weaknesses that we've had in this vetting process of loans and other benefits. And it's unfortunate that we made it so easy, but they saw an opportunity or taking advantage of it.
And you can kind of, I don't want to say understand that there would be such a opportunity, but think about what occurred, right? And just how quickly they had to move to make something available with the funds and scramble to put up the systems to support that and everything that comes along. And, you know, that the security checks, you know, that they holistically traditionally probably would do, sometimes can be questioned. But on top of it all, this is even worse when you think about, the time to be able to get this out there and available for people to leverage.
Yeah. So there's that balance between, you got to keep these businesses alive and afloat, and let's give them some support at the same time. If you make it too easy, it's going to be just a repeatable fraud that can be perpetrated by these bad actors. So
absolutely.
What else are you seeing out there?
So, it's unfortunate, but LastPass, you might have seen, right? Mm-hmm. Second time within, I don't know, maybe 6 months or so, another data breach. And they're saying that, one of the things that's interesting is, so they posted, LastPass posted their own kind of, page up on their blog stating, I believe it was on the 30th of November, that they have identified, that there was another breach. It was attributed to information that was leveraged back, I think, in the summer month, maybe August. And, has gotten, again, end user information in their hands. So I say it's interesting because they post it, they make you aware of it. And, just before, this morning, I'm kind of going through my information, news and whatnot. I'm like, hey, let me go take a look and see what the latest is that they've posted and updated on their page. Crickets. So it's a little disconcerting, as to what's really going on there. Now they state that, using the LastPass solution and, the kind of way that they deal with credentials and zero knowledge of the credentials is really, again, not impacted. So I kind of get that, but still, hey, right? People are leveraging this as kind of their vault for their passwords and simplification. And it's 2 times in a very short window. And it's attributed back to, what was learned from that particular past breach. It's a little unnerving.
I'm curious as to how the breach will impact their business too. Because, if you look at the way the number of breaches have sort of created a numbness to the public, the true lasting impact to organization due to a breach is really not come to fruition. The Targets of the world are still doing quite well.
Right.
But when your business is to be a vault for these passwords, it's I would think disconcerting to be trusting. It's a breach of trust in an area that, that is your business, is to protect my secrets. Exactly. And I would think that you'd look elsewhere. But then again, any of those kind of vaulting systems will be a natural target, and whether or not the next one you use is going to be any better. On the one hand, I'm a fan of them and recommend leveraging them, because like my dad has a handheld device that we gave to him for Christmas. It's one of those things where it's not connected to the network. It's just a device where you're actually able to store your passwords.
Okay.
And it has been great because he uses it religiously, and if his memory fails on something, he knows where it is. Now, the sad thing is my mom does not use that or anything so close to that. And she, forgot her password on said system, and we couldn't help her out, and anyway, it was just one of those things. It was like, one of those frustration points in the inner household. It's like, look what I do, honey. Why aren't you using my best practice?
I learned from my son that this is the way you should do this stuff, right?
Right.
It's funny that you bring that up, because it's like the consistent, calls from friends and family about, hey, what should I do with this, security issue? Hey, I read this thing that happened, on, with Apple and, my iPhone. Should I update it? Yeah. Why don't you go ahead and update that thing, right? But it's like when you get to, coming off of Thanksgiving just a few weeks back, and it's like, well, all those interesting conversations, like the topics all come to the table at that point in time. Hey, Rob, let me ask you about this thing, right? And I'm like, oh God, can't we just talk about football today? Right.
Yeah.
One of the other things that I thought was interesting is, so WhatsApp also had a breach that they put out there and announced and said, hey, I guess it was like 500 million of their users' information was gotten. Basically, it's who you are and your phone number is what it is. So that is being sold on the dark web. I want to say they have it kind of broken up by country. That's what I was reading. And I believe, for example, the US was something like, if you want the whole list of US users we have with their attributed phone numbers, It's about $7,000 that you can go ahead and
Pretty
pony up.
cheap.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then they're using that obviously for smishing attacks, right?
Yeah.
Perfect time of the year. So it's like, oh, come on, yet another thing, that they're taking advantage of out there.
And actually, I think I was talking to speaking of during Thanksgiving dinner conversation, I think it was my daughter, that my oldest daughter was saying that she was getting a lot of those kind of smishing kind of attacks, these kind of texts from unknowns that were inundating her phone. And it's one of those things we sort of get used to the emails,
right?
And sort of build up that internal filter and actually filter out some when you can. But the SMS attacks is just so annoying. It's just it's unfortunate. It's just not going to stop.
No, and it's just, it seems like they're more frequently coming either from banks, or I should say, looking like they're banks or some retail establishment, right? And then I've seen recently even where it's like your kind of cellular service provider. So they're trying to come across like your Verizon or T-Mobile, update this, click on the link to capture this information, click on the link for this Black Friday, Cyber Monday special, like all that type of stuff, right?
Right.
Well, thanks, Dan. I think, again, another great conversation. I hope everyone is enjoying the extra episodes and they'll keep on coming. Take care till next time.
Thanks, Rob.